Welcome to Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show, the podcast where nostalgia comes alive. Since July of 2021, Jake and his friends have interviewed professionals in the worlds of acting, directing, writing, puppeteering, and many more. Who will they be chatting with in this week's interview? Find out in this Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show episode. Hello everybody, welcome to another episode of Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show where nostalgia comes alive. I am one of your co-hosts, Chris Bixby, and with me today as always our other co-host, Matt Bingel, and our host, Jake Deffinbaugh. How are you?
Good.
Great, Chris. How about you?
Good. How you doing?
Very good, very good.
Awesome.
Great here. Who do we have?
So today's guest, he wrote for Sesame Street for several years. He also wrote for the show The Puzzle Place. He's done a lot of musical theater work as well, and we're here to talk about that and some of the other things he's done. And here he is, Ian Ellis James, or by his stage name, William Electric Black. Happy to have you here.
What's happening? What's happening? We finally, like I said, pulled it together. I wear many hats, definitely. So I'm always like, putting the hats on and keeping the energy out there. Definitely.
Yeah,
absolutely. So to kick this off, could you introduce yourself a little bit and what you do?
Sure. So the name is Yawn. It's spelled like Ian, but it's Yawn. My folks gave it like this one syllable. So my whole life, I've always had to be like, no, it's not Ian, it's Yawn Ellis James. And then when I was in grad school out in Southern Illinois University, I became the William Electric Black. I wanted to be sort of like bad, like Shakespeare. So I was like, I took William for William Shakespeare, and I took Black because I'm Black. And I was like, yo, I'm kind of electric. So that's how I came up with William Electric Black. And, my love has always been like theater. I started off in theater and left grad school, came back to New York, and I was doing a lot of theater. And then I got introduced to, the world of children's TV through John Weidman, who's, been around writing for Sesame Street, writing, Broadway shows. And, the rest is history. I kind of got working with Sesame Street. And then through that, a lot of different other shows, as you mentioned, The Puzzle Place, Allegra's Window. I've done some stuff in Canada for group Super Chefs, Winchester TV and Film in London. And then I've been getting grants to, on my own to develop projects for kids through like sort of health, living healthy lifestyles for kids. So I went on that venture, and in that venture, I write, direct, and produce. So I put them all together. So I kind of learned, through the industry and doing projects to be a writer, director, producer, and composer. So
nice.
Awesome.
Terrific. Can you talk about your background and how did you grow up?
I grew up in a cabin. So I grew up, I was singing. So I love singing. I must say that's kind of my, it kind of got me in it. I had a great teacher, he's no longer with us, Yawn Wilgenkamp. And so like in high school, I was like singing, I was a singing guy. And then that actually got me into writing, lyrics. I was like, that was my first love of writing. I was like writing song lyrics and kind of, getting into that direction. Summer stock came along, and, there was no high school shows, but my brother's friends were doing summer stock at local colleges out on Long Island. And I was like, oh, cool. And so I started doing summer stock, and it was musical theater, a lot of it. So I did, a lot of the shows that you'd still see, Music Man and, Oklahoma, or, Finian's Rainbow. I was like singing. I was like, wow, I love this. This is great stuff, Then, of course, it's time, you go off and you want to have a career, and your parents are like praying, don't go into the arts, don't do that. You'll never survive, So I went off to this la-di-da school, Bowdoin College. Not so la-di-da, but because they were like unbelievable people I met. But they didn't have like theater, they had like one class. And so then I came home and I told my parents, I was like, nah, I can't, And so they were like, okay. So I went to a community school out on Long Island, and that school, man, Billy Crystal, all these people went there. Eddie Murphy, like it was like a great little school.
Wow.
So I went and I did like a lot of theater, and then I kept going in theater, and I did undergrad, and then I did grad. But while I was in school, I didn't, the acting sort of just became secondary. I was like, well, somebody writes all this stuff that people are in, and I was like, I want to try to get into that direction. And then I started writing plays, writing musicals. And that actually helped me when I got into children's TV. with Sesame Street, I kept saying, well, I can write songs. And they were like, no, just write street stuff between, whatever, Elmo and Gordon. And I said, but I can really write music. And eventually they let me write. And so I got some of the top tunes that people love, like Patti LaBelle's Gospel Alphabet.
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
I love that one.
That's
Queen
amazing.
Latifah. I wrote songs for, Erykah Badu, Arrested Development. So, the music I've always loved, and that's actually, I was telling you about my Romeo and Juliet tribal rock musical now running.
Yeah.
Yes.
So, write music. I wrote music to Shakespeare's words and dialogue. So, I'm a big fan of music. I just love music. So,
Awesome.
Nice. Awesome. So what got you into becoming a writer?
what got me into it? Well, I was curious about, as an actor, I love being up on stage, but I was very curious about, like, wow, somebody writes this stuff, that everybody's in. I'm like, what is that about? And so I just dabble. I was always kind of writing, like I said beforehand, lyrics. I was always like poems, to girls that never like me, cared about me, but I'd write some love poem or something. So I was writing poetry, and then lyrics, because it's sort of an offshoot, poetry. And that sort of kind of got me going, like the writing. And then once I realized, well, there were scripts to write, I was like, well, let me try my hand at that. But undergrad, I really wasn't like, taking writing classes. It was more acting. It wasn't until I got to grad school, Southern Illinois University, I went to grad school for playwriting, that I really locked into structure and character development. And while I was at Southern Illinois, I had several plays done up in Chicago. So now I felt like, yeah, I'm a real writer now, I'm getting stuff done. And then I came back to New York, and it was tough because, you submit scripts and it takes, 2 years for a theater to recognize you, like, oh, and then they workshop you. And I was like, that's crazy. So I started producing, because that's what I was doing in grad school. I was like writing my own stuff and making it happen. I was doing that in undergrad too. So then I realized, well, I could do that. I could produce stuff. So I started to borrow money and find spaces and produce. And in fact, this Romeo and Juliet tribal rock musical, I put it together, I'm directing it, and I produced it. And so, that's kind of one skill I would recommend to everybody. Don't just be a writer director, also be a producer, and you can produce other people's things and your own work. So
Definitely. So I know we kind of talked about it at the beginning, but how did you kind of begin working on Sesame Street? Like, how did that come into play?
Well, actually, it was very funny. So one of my good friends, Reggie Life, who used to direct for the Cosby Show and other projects.
Oh, wow.
So he told me, at the time it was called Children's Television Workshop. He said, oh, Children's Television Workshop, they're like having an open call, submit some stuff. So I submitted some stuff. And then, living in New York City, you meet different people. So I met John Weidman. And if you look up his credits, he's a big time writer. So John said, oh, listen, Sesame Street, they're looking for writers of color. I was like, okay, cool. And, come in and meet the head writer. And at the time it was Norman Stiles.
Oh, yes,
wow.
previous guest of ours.
Previous guest.
Yes.
Yeah, Norman, great,
awesome.
fabulous guy, man. I learned so
Yes.
much about writing and writing TV from him. He, really, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing without Norman. I really give him all the credit, because I was like, TV, what's that? And but the thing was, you sort of audition, you go in and they say, well, write a little, street bit. I said, oh, great. And they said, we'll pay you. And I'm like, wait, what? I come out of the theater and anything. The theater, you bleed money. And you're like, okay, it was a great experience. So I'm very cool. I'm like, oh, thank you. That sounds great. And I leave the office. I'm like, what do you mean? This is crazy. So, and it took me about a year to actually get in the door, because Sesame Street has a zillion characters, man. It's like not easy.
Gosh, yeah.
Plus, you got to marry it to curriculum. It's a whole curriculum, content and numbers and letters and emotional, upheaval, whatever you want. Dealing with failing, failure, and all that stuff is like in there. You're like, oh, okay. So then I come back and they say, oh, great, we want you to write a whole script now. And I was like, oh, okay. And they said, we'll pay you. Really, what? He's crazy, So then I go off and work on the script, and it's great. And they help me, Norman, really, they help you learn, because again, you got to learn. I mean, there's Elmo, and there's Cookie Monster, there's Telly, there's Big Bird, there's like a zillion characters, right? So, I kept, kind of working with these people. And, after a year, I got in as a writer. They put you on and then they assign you X amount of scripts. So that was kind of how that worked. And then I was there from 92 to 2002. So 10 years. It was a great, gig. And while I was there, I was also then working with Puzzle, Factory. Puzzle Place was called, Allegra's Window. I did a rooftop garden. I don't know if you guys even tracked down that. There was a thing about a rooftop, gardening on rooftops called Backyard Safari. And I was head writer on that for a little bit. It was crazy. I was like, wait, what? And it was about gardening on rooftops in the city. And it was cool.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Nice.
And Mickey Rooney was a voice of an animated character. It was crazy.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, Backyard Safari. So that was another one I got involved with.
Nice.
Very
Nice.
nice.
That's awesome. So, do you remember what your first day was like on Sesame and working there for the first time?
Well, Sesame is very interesting because you worked, once you got your script assignments, like you'd have meetings. The writers are great. They were, like I said, they were writing for Broadway, other kind of shows, writing theater. So, writing, people wrote on all kinds of, different, areas and mediums. But they were just so great, and funny and talented. I mean, it was just great. It's sort of it's kind of a writer's room, but you really didn't write as a writer's room. You wrote on your own. So once you got a script assignment, you went off and did that by yourself.
Right.
So, but it was very challenging because it felt like being in grad school, if you know what I mean. It was really hard. It was because you had to marry it to some kind of curriculum ideas and goals. And, it wasn't just like, let me write a script. You had to write a script about something, that was related to the curriculum packet. And the curriculum packet, like I said, was like this thick. So you would go in, and one thing is they wanted to be entertaining. So that was kind of Norman's thing, make it fun, entertaining, and then we'll marry the curriculum content to it. But you had to always go in and pitch a show idea. And you were on your own, basically. So you go in front of the head writer, and I'd say, here's an idea, Elmo does this. And they say, oh, no, we already, the show had been on forever already. They say, oh, no, we kind of did that. What else do you have? So I had to go in with about a dozen ideas to get one approved. That was crazy. It was really difficult. You had to go in and pitch basically different story ideas until one landed. Then they would say, great, go off and write that. And then you had a couple of weeks to turn it around. And if you had you were writing 5 scripts for that season, you had to do that every time. So every time I had to walk in with a dozen ideas to get one script ready to go. And then I had to write that script. Then they're giving you script notes. And then, the research department, they're like, no, it needs to have this in it, or it needs to have that. And then if you're writing for puppets, I'm sure some of the other puppeteers came in and talked to you about it. But, there are some puppets work with their hands, like telemonsters. Some are rigged on rods, right? So if I have a rod puppet and I want them to pick up a book, I have to write in somehow some cutaway. Oh, I'll be right back. And they go off. Then they stick the book in their hands, right? They rig it.
Right, yeah.
And they come back in. Oh, I got the book. So you have to be able to write that. So you got to think that way. Like, oh, shoot, what kind of puppet am I working with? What can they do? What can't they do? And also then as you're writing the script, think about that and, how that works. So when you talk about the first day, it was like a tornado. There's so much. So the first days are kind of like developing the script idea, rewriting the script several times. It wasn't just here it is, the script's done. You got notes. It took 2 or 3 times.
Yeah, it's like where some wires be like, okay, we add this part or so I get it with that.
Yeah, very difficult, very difficult. And then along the way, like I said, I kept nudging them like I could write songs. And so that was great. I was able to then, get some inserts in terms of songs, and that was kind of like a lot of fun for me and part of the writing the experience. And like I said, I got to write, for some great artists and
yeah, definitely
keep my writing chops going in that direction.
Definitely. So I'm kind of curious, when you write an episode, do you at all get to pick some of the inserts that they'd use too, or no?
Yeah. So putting the script together, not only did you have to write the script, then they'd give you some okay, here are some inserts. and then you got to marry the inserts into your script. So originally, you know, it was like an hour, you know, right?
Right.
So it wasn't like half-hour thing. So you made the hour by adding those inserts that are already made by filmmakers. You know, they already had the films. And so you would then pick those films to go in and break up your script and put the show together based on those inserts. Yeah, you know. So that was always tricky, you know, to get them in between some of the scenes, some of the, you know, the street scenes. And then you cut away to, you know, a thing about a number or a letter or this or that. And so you would have to put those into the script, right? And then keep going your script that you're writing and then keep marrying in those little inserts. And then eventually you had your whole script put together, and that's when you hand it in. So talk about work. It was crazy. It was crazy. It was very
definitely.
Yeah.
Yep. So do you have any favorite episodes or inserts that you wrote for Sesame?
They were kind of all fun. Again, I must say I gravitate towards the music because I just, you know, I had some great fun. I had the King Accounting. I wrote a song for the Count as Elvis. And that was fun. That was great. And you know, they dressed him up as like Elvis, and that was one of my favorite. You know, the street stuff I like, but you know, writing. You know, I got to write for Queen Latifah. I don't know if you guys looked up my letter.
Yes.
I did a piece called The Letter O, and that was kind of challenging because, like, you know, I created a story in there about Telly Monster missing his letter O, and then I got to use Queen Latifah's tracks. So it was from one of her songs. I think it was called "That's the Way We Flow." Was a song, and then they gave me the tracks, and then I put new lyrics on her tracks. And it was the letter O because I thought, oh, flow, cool, that's the letter O. So I came up with that. And then, you know, I had to write that. You know, just in terms of, you know, some of the scripts there was a fun one. Some of the simpler ones are the best. Elmo wanted to go to the zoo.
Yes.
Yes.
We actually watched that episode early before this interview.
So he had to bring the zoo to Maria, you know.
Yep.
So he becomes a monkey and an elf, you know, he comes back as all the different, you know, animals.
Yeah, where Maria really wants to go to the zoo, but she can't because she's busy with, you know.
Yeah. So that was a fun one to write because he, you know, you got to see Elmo go crazy and be all these different characters and have fun with it. That was one, you know, I liked writing for Oscar. You know, he was kind of the bad boy living in the trash can. And when Mr. Hanford was there and he had passed away, there was a thing about the Hanford Five. I wrote a piece. He was, you know, it was about a song about trash, and you know, it was really fun.
Yeah.
You know, he was bopping around and talking about the trash in his can. It was like bop, 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 you know, trash. You know, so fun. So I love the sort of the characters, you know, that, and some of my favorite characters were like Oscar, and I love Cookie Monster because it was really clear about what he wanted, you know, cookies.
Yeah.
You know, they were just the ensemble. It's kind of brilliant show because the ensemble is just so unique.
Yeah.
You know, so that was my thing, was just writing about the ensemble. I mean, I think a lot of the shows either, you know, there was one about Telly's Triangle, you know, where Telly played the triangle and you know, he was kind of trying to figure out like a band and you know, using the triangle in the band. So it was always good when they had certain specifics like that you could lock into and kind of, you know, rally around a show about a specific thing. There was one character, you know, they talk about diversity and inclusion, and way back, I came up with this character, Kingston Livingston, or with Norman, and it was a puppet way back.
Oh yeah. I remember.
Yes.
They used in a few episodes, and this was even before, you know, the last few years about, let's have inclusion and diversity. They had, you know, Sesame Street, you have to applaud them. They did that way back. They were always trying to, you know, develop characters that, you know, we should have in a neighborhood, on the street. We should be open to, you know, certain times, you know, they would have a group that we would write about or for. And I remember getting a curriculum packet on Asian Americans, you know, that, hey, let's try to find stories of Native Americans. I mean, so they were like ahead of the game way back. about trying, in terms of diversity, inclusion, working with people that, are not sort of, represented. I'm sure you recall the sign language was a big thing on the show.
Yes, with
Yes.
Linda.
And I did a thing once. Linda had a dog, Barkley, and
Yeah.
I love Barkley.
it was one of my
Yes, Barkley is
favorites.
awesome.
And they wanted the pet. Zoe wanted Barkley as her pet. But Barkley was Linda's pet. So trying to teach him to do tricks and they were signing the rollover and sit. Very unique, and that was pretty special. And like I said, that was years ago. They were kind of doing that. So
Nice. There are a lot of good ones you wrote. Another one of my favorites that you wrote was when it was Sing Along Day on Sesame Street.
Yes.
That's a good one.
Great episode.
And then also the one where they introduced the character Alan.
Yeah.
Yes.
Alan was great because he took over the store.
Right.
And that's Mr. Hanford, he had passed away. Some of the, it's been on so long that different people passed away along the way. So that was kind of a sad part. It's like a family, it's like,
Right.
These people that you work with, and some of those people are not around anymore. So it's like,
Yeah.
And so Alan, he was great. He, came in and so along the way, Savion Glover was on the show. Did you know that?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, I remember.
Yep.
Savion.
Yes, we
One
did.
time he was on there. He was one of the kids, Bob, like Savion Glover. So
Tap dancing, yeah.
Tap dancing.
Yeah.
That's right.
Taught Elmo how to tap dance.
Yeah. And that's
Doesn't
those are
surprise
fun
me.
shows. Like shows like that are fun. You can see the characters tapping and doing different things. And he was great. He was very young. On that show. Marco. Over the years they've had different characters, young kids, and which I love, and that's part of the community. Kids.
Absolutely.
The adults, humans. Mixing in. When I got on board, sadly, I missed working with Jim Henson. He had just passed away. But the other Hensons, were there, and you work with them, and the puppeteers are like, they're like geniuses in terms of what they can do, and because they're rigged, they have the whole setup, and the voicing the characters, so it's pretty special in terms of just the whole community and the production value, and it's been on for umpteen years, so
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
right,
Yeah. So now onto the song side. I know you brought up a couple already, but do you have any favorite songs that you got to write for Sesame? I know, of course, you mentioned some of the celebrity ones that you wrote.
I talked about the gospel alphabet. She even mentioned in a Times article, it was great. Patti LaBelle mentioned that was like one of her favorite songs, the gospel alphabet. I was like,
Like, that's
Wow.
my song. Like,
That's my song.
Yeah, so that was great. And I partnered with Gail Sky King on these songs, and she passed away recently. So again,
Yeah.
she was a great writing partner. And Erica Badu, I worked with, Bobby Floyd's guy, he passed away. But Erica Badu's song was kind of fun one. And that was about being different, because they were like, oh, Erica Badu, her style in terms of how she dresses. And, they were like, oh, and it was great because the songs also have again, they're married to the curriculum content. So with Erica Badu, she was dressed differently, and can you appreciate someone dressing differently and be tolerant of somebody's style? And yes, you can. So that was really special. The Hanford, there was a group called the Hanford Five, and I remember they got this old car, like a 1958 car or something on board, and that was kind of cool. These guys came on; they were like doo-wop singers, and I remember writing a song for them. I forget the song, but I think they were called the Hanford Five or something like that. That was pretty unique.
The song you wrote for Arrested Development that you mentioned too, that was a good one.
Right, that was a very cool one. I don't know if you've seen that one. That was called Pride, and that was very fun. Having pride about this or that. And then they really, I think every other, puppet was in that one. It was a great little song that they put together and that was a good one. Some of the animated ones. I don't know if you guys ever seen this one. I did a thing based on Hammer Time, and it was about.
Yeah, that's right.
You saw that it was a hammer like, you know, and it was hammer time, and the hammer was hammering nails.
Yeah.
That was
Yes.
so cool.
Yes.
That was a great one. I really thought that we really nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say though, you definitely did write a lot of good songs for Sesame Street. They're very good
Yes.
ones.
Yeah, in
Yeah,
fact,
really
some of
did.
them are like in the top 10. When I looked at this top 10 list of favorite songs, I think I had 2 or 3 in the top 10 that people were
Oh
talking about.
my God.
Wow.
That's cool.
I was
That's
like,
cool.
wow. So yeah, so that's, you know, like, again, songwriting's been my thing, and like I mentioned, you know, I hope you guys get to come see the Romeo and Juliet travel rock musical piece, because I just, you know, I love music. I think that's kind of one of the ways I started was music. Like I said, singing, and, you know, chorus, and that's you know, something that sticks with me, you know, and I love doing that. And when I do shows, other projects, you know, I'll write songs for, you know, if somebody hires me, I'll try to write songs and include it in the project, and, you know, so that helps me stretch what I'm
Of
doing,
course.
you know. And who doesn't like music? I mean, there's hit kids shows with music are always like, you know, it's a way to pull, you know, your audience in. So,
Yeah.
you know, I think a lot of shows try to use that anyway, use music. You know?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. So since you already mentioned of your favorite Sesame Muppets that you wrote for, do you have a favorite human characters that you wrote for Sesame?
Human character. Who had us human fan? Who needs them? No. No, they were all pretty special, but you know, a favorite. It's, you know, again, like I said, it's hard because it's an ensemble. I mean, you'd love to Fix It shop, because, you know, they were always fixing, you know, Maria, you know, in the Fix It shop. You know, she was great. Sonia, you know, and she was also one of the writers too on the show.
That's
So,
right.
you know,
Mhm.
it was pretty special. He just passed away, Bob. I don't know if you guys
Yeah.
had,
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
he was like the sweetest, dearest, I mean, just soulful guy, always, you know, with a smile and pleasant. You know, he was pretty special, you know.
Yeah.
And I was sorry to hear that he had passed away, but you know, Gordon, I mean, like I said, there was a lot of different characters, so you're like, you know, they were all just kind of part of the family there. I did get to work with, you know, Mr. Hanford before he passed away. He was great. David Smerrill was a fabulous individual, and it really is a family. You know, I got to tell you, from, you know, the you know, human characters, puppets, the street, and I think that's part of the joy of the show, man. I think that's the power of it. It really is this special place that you go to, and people have problems, and they're dealing with things, and, you know, they're kid problems, but the kid problems are real. And now, you know, Sesame Street deals with, you know, people want bedtime routines, and kids, you know, kids go through a lot of emotional upheaval. And I think the more, you know, that happens, the more Sesame Street tries to address it. You know, they're a pretty special organization, and read the researches, I think, has kept it going. You know,
Definitely.
you see the shows and characters, but there's an unbelievable group that does research and makes sure that everything is, you know, they have the autistic puppet. I don't know, have you guys watched it a little bit? They have,
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
you know, yeah. So, you know, they keep on their toes, and they just want to, you know, I think there's the Asian puppet, and that, you know, they want to make it work. They want kids to be the best they can be. So,
Absolutely. I think they're doing a great job at that too.
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So it made you feel like, whoa, I got to really do it right. I got to do it correct. You know, I just, you know, I got to bring it. You know?
Yeah. So since we just mentioned Bob, can you share any of your fondest memories from getting to work with him?
Just that he was genuine and real, man. He was, you know, he was like the Mr. Rogers of Sesame Street. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was just like,
Yeah.
just he was himself. He could sing. It was like a beacon of light. You know, he always, like, you know, friendly, and just, you know, just there for you, there for people. But really, like I said, you know, the other characters were really, you know, great too. Gordon, and you know, Sonia, and Louise in the Fix It shop, and the different characters. They were all, you know, Alan when he came on, and, you know, they all bring different things. You know, and I think that's, again, something rare. Obviously we want that in the world.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We want our street to be Sesame Street, like every street to be like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
It's something for us to strive for. And I think adults, the writing on the two levels was great because, as writers, that's what we did. We wrote for the kids and we wrote for caregivers and parents watching too. So that's why you get some of those fun little, other things that are over the top, like, whoa, the kid doesn't get it, but the parents get it. So that was always like a fun thing to do, So
Nice.
yeah, awesome. So continuing your work with puppetry, you also wrote for Nick Jr.'s series Allegra's Window. What was that experience like to work on that show?
Yeah, well, it was a little easier.
Yeah.
In one sense. You really I didn't have like a heavy load of curriculum content books, but and so that was great because then I kind of knew how to write for puppet or puppetry. And theirs was very story driven. There was kind of just Allegra. I mean, there were some other puppets. They had other puppets that did other things, but Allegra was really the focus. You didn't, I wasn't writing for several lead puppets, like, oh, this one's going to be about Telly, or now this one's going to be an Elmo story, or this one's going to be an Oscar. Really, it was all Allegra, and her, family. And so it was a little easier that way, but still challenging. Like, what's the story? What's a kid's story? One of my favorites was the turkey pox that I came up with, and kind of kids get sick and I'm sick and I can't participate, and then what a child would go through thinking, that they're missing out, and that's how that sort of story came around. Like, okay, what can they do? What will they do for this kid who's sort of missing out, and how they include her even though child's sick, and that's important. Kids get sick and they think, oh, we're missing out. And so, that was fun. She was a very cute puppet. I remember, they did a good job developing the puppet. And I enjoyed that. That was a fun show to write for.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah, Allegra's great.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, a terrific show. Now, you also wrote a wonderful show, very underrated. What are you doing? I'm just helping you out here. Oh, there you are.
Oh
Puzzle
my
Place.
goodness, Puzzle Place.
Hey, hello. I'm just here assisting. Thank you, Julius. Thank you. You also wrote for the Puzzle Place.
Yes.
And yes, for those watching on video, yes, this is a VHS tape, folks. We're aging ourselves here.
Old school. We're taking
old school.
Yes, I have a Puzzle Place figure pack in the background with Elmo.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Classic.
Wow. I legit have never seen that before. That's cool.
Yeah, so it was given, yes, and for those watching the video version, this was given to me by one of our good friends, DJ Bob.
DJ Bob.
DJ
That's right, you have two. Yes, two tapes right here. What was it like working on the Puzzle Place? Do you have any favorite episodes of that?
Let's see. There was one, Leon's Pizza. That was kind of a fun one.
Yes.
Great episode.
I've seen that one, yes.
Mixing it up, and the pizza kind of represented the bigger sort of story. There was Leon's Drum. That was a kind of cool one. That show was great because they really brought in the whole sort of Native American, they were really figuring out another way to present groups of people, culturally. So that was great. And so I really enjoyed, there were more puppets to write for in a sense there. And they took it in a different direction, which I enjoyed. And then they had sort of inserts of other little characters that would kind of appear, which was kind of nice. But it was cool. I think originally it was called Puzzle Factory or something.
I think it's originally called the Puzzle Works.
Puzzle Works,
something like that. Yeah.
And
then they did like a pilot, and then they changed
a couple pilot.
They changed
a couple pilot shows, right, and then they switched to the Puzzle Place.
To the Puzzle Place.
Yeah.
That's right.
And it was very cool. I thought they did a great job of trying to bring in different cultures and experiences of people, and make that happen. And they were great to work for. I enjoyed that, and kind of getting off in that. But like I said, once I was writing for Sesame Street, other shows were, I mean, that one was involved. I mean, that I would think more so than the Allegra's Window in terms of what they wanted to bring to the to the show. So that had a little bit more curriculum content, I would say, than the Allegra's Window to really dive into somebody's background and the different groups, and really kind of find a show that worked for that show that they want. What do they want to convey? So yeah. But puppets are great. And again, you just had the issue, like I said, of can the puppet hold something? It can't. Are there cutaways? As a writer, you had to always think about that when you're working with puppets. Puppets are expensive. They have to raise stage and shoot it a different way.
Yeah, and they deteriorate after many years too.
You got right. That was you had a special crew that actually just took care of the puppets.
Right.
You had to mention that in front of me. Oh, come on.
We love you.
I do.
So you don't find as many, I think, right? If you look around now, there's a lot of animated shows, right? Or but puppets are still tricky to in terms of kids shows. Are there that many now? Do you guys follow that?
No, there aren't as many puppet shows on, but there are a lot of animated shows in terms for children.
Yeah, animation's kind of taken over.
It's kind of taken over.
Yeah. But one of the new PBS Kids show, puppetry show that we love is called Don Quixote.
Don Quixote.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Yep.
Yeah.
Great show.
Good show. Yes.
Fantastic show.
So you kind of talked about it earlier, but Backyard Safari, can you talk a bit about that, what that show was like?
So the Backyard Safari that was interesting. Meaning, sometimes you have these groups that kind of like are, they're with the National Institutes of Health, they're grants and they get funding for these shows. That show had a lot of sort of cooks, people thinking they know what they wanted or they didn't know what they wanted. So that to me was a difficult show to write for. I don't think I had any puppets. And it was rooftop, and they had a celebrity. She was from oh my God, she worked with the Jeffersons, right? Wasn't she? If you looked into it, the shows I did, I was with them for a little bit. They had a celebrity, and she's was on the rooftop, and this is gardening, and this is what you could do, and it was sort of driven by this character that was kind of narrating different things that you could do. Then there were cutaways, to hey, what you can do, or taking you out of, say, the roof. It's almost like Sesame Street. We want to take you somewhere. We'll show you a little film or an insert.
Yeah.
Then they had this Crinkle Root that was voiced by Mickey Rooney, the Mickey Rooney. Mickey Rooney did not like rap, or so it's like, okay. So getting this Mickey Rooney Crinkle Root character to do any kind of cool songs, was challenging. So, to me, it was a tough writing experience. And then to me, I felt the people, kind of running it weren't sure what the show should be or could be.
Like they weren't sure like what direction it would be going in. Yeah.
And to be honest, a rooftop garden, okay, where's the fun in that? I mean, there must be some fun in it, but my thing is, and I developed a show that, I haven't even produced it or found, there's a couple of people that, are looking at it, but a show like that's fun if the plants are puppets, you see. This was real gardening. So like, but imagine a show where you have Venus flytrap. Hey, everybody, so you can use the plants. It's like Little Shop of Horror for kids. That's my pitch, right? And so imagine that. That's kind of fun and zany, And so that's what I thought it it needed as a direction. But this was like real, planting stuff and soil, and so I was with them for like a year or so, not that long. But they got it off the ground, and I think it kept going for a little bit. So
nice.
Yeah. So that was Backyard Safari.
Nice.
Like I said, I've done other projects. There's a group called Hip Hop Public Health, and I've worked with Dougie Fresh. Oh my God, those guys!
Wow.
And that's been kind of cool.
Awesome.
And we do these like animated pieces or live action. They go right to schools for kids. And so I got on board with that, and I worked with them for years doing projects, Hip Hop Public Health. And then other people, there's a group of super chefs in Vancouver, and I've been working with them as a consultant. And so that's kind of fun to now branch out, and people give me a call and they say, hey, we got this project, and can you try that or this? And it still keeps me in the kids arena. I've been working with Farview Entertainment, working on a thing, Dragon Clouds, with them. And now it looks like we may be launching books based on, sort of the environment and climate and trying to, save the world. So these dragons are the ones that are kind of coming forth to, do this. But it's animated, So, like we were just saying, a lot of these projects are animated pieces now, not with puppets.
Definitely. Yeah.
You want to ask this one, Julius? Absolutely. Go ahead. So you also have your own children's television show, Rap-u-cation.
Ooh.
Rap-u-cation. I love the name, but how did that come about?
Well, rap and hip hop and, teaching kids to, run. I mean, look, with Queen Latifah, when I did that Sesame Street one, I was like, oh, rap is everywhere. Kids love it. It's a great way, a tool to, use to teach and to, so it changed with Farview, in fact, or not with Farview, another company. Did we do it with Farview? Farview, we did it and we pitched to PBS, but it wasn't called Rap-u-cation. It was called the Rap Team or something like that. So where, that was sort of a group of superheroes, and they used rap to kind of help get things done. And I forget the town. It was like a Gotham City, and they used sort of words and rhyming and rap. And we did that as a pilot in a pitch deck. So that's still waiting to be launched and hatched. So I've been working with this new company, and they're pretty great. And so, we were just kind of determining, do we want to produce these things ourselves and say, launch it, put it out on YouTube or something, and create something, or do they want to just really try to pitch it somewhere and get somebody else to develop it? So that's kind of where we're at with that rap project and with the Dragon Clouds, which is great. So we're kind of working with them. They're on the West Coast. And I know the Dragon Clouds, I think we may be launching as books. Because
nice.
I don't know if you guys had followed, I've been doing a lot of things with gun violence in kids.
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
That's pretty big. And I started doing these early readers, with a gun is not fun and a gun is not the answer. And so I was going and knocking on doors and saying we should start with 5-year-olds. And people at first were like, wait, what? 5-year-olds. But now, really, I just did a thing on, I don't know if you saw the NBC Nightly News piece I just did, and NPR. I've been like doing all these different things now. And people are starting to realize, well, kids really have guns now when they're 12 and 13. So maybe starting when they're 5 is not a bad idea, re-gun violence prevention and intervention. So that was just came out last week, Nightly News. I'll have to send you guys that. You probably can find it online. But NPR covered me, and the ABC in Philadelphia, ABC6. So more and more people now are like, "Hey, what are you talking about?" And then so they like former Sesame Street writers, out there doing stuff, re-gun violence and intervention. So that's been one of my big passions now, is that. And then so. With the NBC people, they followed me, and I with a group of kids. I put a puppet on my finger called Mr. Finger, and I used Mr. Finger and then I had a mime artist, Tasha Milkman joined me. I had a keyboard player, Will Wagner, and so we went in, and I used kids songs like row, row, row your boat, but then I changed it to run, run, run away. If you see a gun, tell a grown-up or a parent, please call 911. So I take kids' songs, I change them up, and people are like, wait, what? Like, what are you doing? And so I've used sort of the Sesame Street idea, and I'm using it now with gun violence intervention and prevention for little kids. And more people are like, wow.
That's really cool. Wow.
Yeah, so that's what I've been doing lately, and it sort of marries the Sesame Street techniques with my, writing songs. And that's been, kind of important and necessary.
Definitely. Definitely. So now, besides writing for television, you've done a bit of film work. What's that like?
The film is good. I mean, you write a script, you try to get it optioned, and I've had these scripts optioned, and I sort of like these futuristic kind of ideas. So I did this basketball piece that was optioned by Warner Brothers. They never made it. That was called Slave Ball. Woo! Combat basketball in the future, man. Look out. So now, I changed the title. It came back to me, reverted back to me to rights, and now it's called Battle Ball. And I've got it with different people kind of to develop. But it's New York City, sort of in ruins. And, sort of gangs kind of rule the land, but they don't really fight, kind of with guns or anything. They fight with combat basketball. So they challenge each other on the court and they boom, boom, but you can hit and punch each other. It's allowed. And it's kind of cool. And it follows like some teenagers, kind of duking it out to survive. It's survival, and people bet on the game. It's kind of like a gladiator kind of vibe, and that's been kind of fun to work on and develop that Battle Ball. So,
nice. Nice.
Awesome. So aside from that, you've done a lot of writing for musical theater. How did theater come into play for you?
Well, I started in theater, and as I mentioned, I did the summer stock. I started doing these shows back in high school, and I got very excited about it. And then when I went off to, come back from going to Bowdoin College for 1 year to be an economics major, and I said, I'm going back into theater. I was doing acting, and I was still involved with plays and different things, but, music, I always loved music. So I was like, well, maybe I'm going to not really just start writing plays. Maybe I'm going to write some musicals. So I think one of my first ones was called like Space Rock. I was like, yeah, woo, some psychedelic musical. And that was fun. And then, and then I've gone on to write several other projects that, they've been, I use kind of the different theaters in the downtown scene. So there's Theater for the New City, where my Romeo and Juliet travel rock musical is running now. And I've also worked at a La Mama on East 4th Street, La Mama ETC. And they've been great. They've allowed me to try, sort of my musicals. And so some of the classic, like I've taken Frankenstein, Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I turned that into a musical. I did Hamlet as a musical. This is also before, Hamilton and all these shows. I was like always experimenting, like, I'm going to try to, take a classic and kind of rock it out. And so that's how, Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, I've been tinkering with for years. But I love fun kid stuff. So I wrote a musical, My Boyfriend is a Zombie. That was sort of a high school thing, and a girl meets a zombie, a little love story. And then there was one that I did a couple of years ago, and this was great. It was Betty and the Bell Rays. And Betty and the Bell Rays was kind of cool. I flipped it. It was like 1960s, and Detroit. And it was about a group of white teenage girls, right, that wanted to sing for a black record label. So I kind of reversed it. And they were like, oh, we want to sing. And, the girl's like, I want to be a Negro. She tells her mom, like, the mom's like, wait, what are you talking about? So that was kind of fun to write. And so they learn, why these kids were really singing. It was a way out, as an opportunity, a way to survive when the doors were closed for you in other avenues, being, sort of a black kid back then in the 60s. And so the girls decided their songs are really going to be about the civil rights movement. They're going to, do this sort of soul singing, but, one of the songs was, why, oh, why must we do the segregation? So they're singing all these songs about, and so they get popular, but then they get so popular that the white community that they're from is like, why are you trying to help Black people? What's wrong with you? Wait. And so then they get scared and nervous and they're like, should we do this? Should we continue? And Betty says, okay, you guys can drop out, but in fact, I'm going to go down and join the civil rights movement. So it's a cool story. It's one of my favorite musicals. And people are like, man, that was a great. And she goes down and sadly she gets killed in, one of the marches. And it's called Betty and the Bell Rays. And I'd love to get back to that. It was a pretty powerful musical. And people were like, wow. And just something I made up. So, again, the songs, I created the songs. And, so that's kind of always been my love, like music. And I have if you go to Spotify, you'll see some of my, so I have under Electric is the Circle, I've got a couple of songs out now, so I have a one I just released called Swag City, little funky thing. So, the music is really something that it kind of leads me, keeps pushing me forward. Yeah.
Definitely.
So, over the years, you won and were nominated for many awards for your extensive writing work for TV and theater. How does it feel that your projects you've worked on became, so successful?
Well, the one thing you talk about my Sesame Street experience, and you say, how was that? When I first realized, they were like, well, we're up for Emmy Awards. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? This is like children's TV. They say, oh no, there's a category for children's TV. And it's Emmys. I'm like, wait, what? So I know that totally blew me away. I was like, are you kidding me? So, you go to these ceremonies and you're up against Barney and, this, all these Bill Nye, and you're like, wait, wow. Yeah. And then they announced like, the winner is Sesame Street. I'm like, what? And you get a freaking statue. You're like, okay. So totally blew my mind. Totally, and my mind is still blown. And people come over to my apartment and they look up and they like see these Emmy Awards. They're like, wait, what? And I'm like, and then sometimes I'll bring them out if I'm doing a workshop with young people or some kids, and I'll bring one, and they're like, even more so, like the teachers all want to hold it or something. Like, you can hold it. That blew me away out of everything. Like, writing for the show, but then to receive an award, like an Emmy Award, it's like, okay. So that was pretty cool. Working with La Mama, here on East 4th Street, and the artistic director, Mia Yu, she's fabulous. It was originally started with Ellen Stewart, but they won years ago a regional Tony Award, which is, it's part of it. I worked there as a series director. I run a thing called Poetry Electric at La Mama. And once a month, every other month, I do a series where I bring in poets or spoken word artists, beatboxers. And so I'm part of La Mama. So then when they won, it was like, oh my goodness, Tony Award. Okay, I'm part of this theater. So that was pretty exciting to, at least be, part of that umbrella that, was acknowledged. And I've received citations from, senators and different people about, my work. And, it feels good. It's just, you keep swinging. But it's not, it's not so much you do it to win, those awards. Like my thing on gun violence is I'm doing that to save lives. It's like, that's the reward for me. If I can go in and read my Gun Is Not Fun book to a 5-6-year-old and they survive gun violence, and they, if they ever come to that moment where they're thinking about it and they remember, that guy who came through, did a program at our school, and I realized that, gun is not fun and a gun shouldn't be in my backpack, or, like Sesame Street, it's like, which of these things belong in a backpack? You see, an apple, a pencil, a sandwich, a gun? No. So these are things that I work with little kids with. And so imagine if you could keep working with them by the time they go to middle school and think about this gun thing. And, I believe I'm going to save some lives. So that's the reward.
Yeah. Actually, it's not like we're like, oh, come on, please get this award. Like, if you like your work of what you've done, that's the award. That's what
And that's why I keep doing it. I love what I do. And, that's the thing. The artists, you love writing, you love directing or composing, creating, it's pretty special. So
definitely.
Yeah.
It's always, you stick your neck out and just, you hope that you've got the right idea, you feel it, and it's going to work. I mean, this new project, and I hope, if you're around, you come see it. I got a cast of 13 people. I wrote the music, it's Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet. So I've been working on it since like last, September, October. And it just opened. So I've worked on it for, 5 months, so rehearsing, putting it together.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then it opened. So it's like, it's exhausting. And then you sit back and you go, whoa. Shoot. And so not, so writer, director, producer, composer, like putting it all, seeing the whole thing. So, and I'm actually here right now teaching at NYU. So I teach at Tisch. And I'm in the dramatic writing department. So a lot of times when I'm teaching, it's not just writing. It's not like writing a script with your head down, typing a script. It's like you got to see it. And
nice.
So that's the beauty. It's like you got an idea, it starts, yes, the germ, you write it, the script, you're putting the characters together, and then you see it come to life. Man, there's nothing like that.
Nice. And that's a special thing.
TV is beautiful too. If I write a thing for Elmo and then I get to see Elmo, do it.
Yeah.
I get to see them put it together, and there it is. Man.
And very well too. I mean, I think, Kevin, who was doing Elmo at that time, he did a fantastic job with Elmo.
Oh my gosh.
Those guys were, I mean, and also we lost some puppeteers.
Yeah.
But, they're quite special, in terms of, they have to do it all, the voices, the movement, and it's hard to be a puppeteer. I remember hearing that they would have auditions and it was very difficult. And I'm sure, operating a puppet and,
it's not like be like, oh, did a part and you got the job. No, it's not like that.
Yeah.
It's not like that
exactly.
at all.
It's way more to us than
you gotta
you think.
train for it. You gotta train and
a lot of training.
for it. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So, total respect for all those guys and the women artists, that the people putting the any show that deals with puppets, that's it's not easy. So
So here's an interesting question. Do you have any memorabilia or anything from the projects you've worked on with you that you'd like to show or you can talk about?
I have a Tickle Me Elmo, but I don't have it on me. It's in my I one of the originals, the real deal.
Yeah, I think I have that too, actually.
That's kind of cool. And I got a lot of t-shirts, and I've got a jacket. I think I have a jacket that says 25 on it, year 25, and the old sort of the baseball coat looking ones, I love sort of getting that kind of stuff. I have an old hat like this, but it says Sesame Street. And, I love sort of getting that kind of, the shirts, the t-shirts, the jackets. That was kind of cool. And I think I've got some kind of little ornament thing with a big bird on it, that was always fun. But the Tickle Me Elmo, that's my pride. That's next to my Emmys. I have it up my Emmys, and I got a Tickle Me Elmo in the middle of it.
Wow.
And I wrote a show actually about Elmo getting tickled. So I always wondered, did I launch Tickle Me Elmo? If you look it up, I did a show about Elmo being tickled. And so I was like, is that me? Did I do that?
Yeah.
Am I behind it? Am I the genius behind
Exactly.
behind the Tickle Me Elmo? So that was always fun and it was always fun to go on the set. If you had a show, you could go and see them shoot it. And that was pretty special to
Definitely.
that.
Definitely.
Yes, that's for sure.
Yep.
So
and I love seeing people record the songs. You could go to the set and meet, Queen Latifah or Erykah Badu, or that was kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Nice. So overall, what do you enjoy most about working as a writer over the years?
Creating the people, making the stories, the characters. I have a book coming out in September called Gunplays, right? So I wrote back around 2012 that, this theater that I work at for the New City, I was so, the gun violence thing just didn't happen. I've been on it for years, and people now say like, man, you were always talking about gun violence. So I wrote these plays years ago, five for one every year, right? 2012, I think I started, and I said I'm going to call them gun plays, and I'm going to produce them and put them together. They weren't musicals. They some had poetry, flowetry. They had different kind of styles. But there weren't any musicals. They were really straight dramas, and it had to do with gun violence, like inner city gun violence. So I wrote these plays. There were like 60 actors over the years, worked on them. And recently, then somebody said, like, what is it? I said, I have these 5 plays. And so they're coming out with Applause Books September. They'll come out. So, here it is. I created these worlds, these stories, characters clashing, conflicts, again, to see those things come to life is just unbelievable. And then now I'm going to have a book published of those plays. It's pretty special. I never thought it really would happen. And, I wanted to at least have one published, but they're Applause Books. They're going to publish all 5 plays. So,
oh, nice.
I'm looking forward to that. That's going to be in September. So maybe come back and talk about the book, the gun plays. So
yeah, absolutely.
we'll make it happen.
Yeah, of course.
We'll make it happen.
Of course.
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah,
so I hope you guys are going to come. Are you going to come? Are you nearby? Can you come see Romeo and Juliet? Are you in town or not? You're in the city area or no?
I don't. I think I'm sort of close to. Where is it? New York?
Yeah. If you get a chance, it's this week and next week. So
okay.
If you continue the interview if you want. Come on down. We'll do it.
That'd be awesome.
That'd be great.
Cool. You could be right there. We're following them down to the show.
Yeah,
that'll be fun. That'll be
think about it. Fun. You got a little remote camera, man. Come on,
yeah.
Right.
Good.
Absolutely.
The tribal rock musical. 2 houses built for lacking dignity and fair Verona, where we lay our scene. Woo! Shakespeare.
Yeah,
bringing it on. And in fact, somebody says it might be kind of cool. What if the Muppets did Shakespeare? I was like, yeah, imagine that.
That
you know what? I can see that.
Imagine that. They all do the different characters, and they do Romeo and Juliet. I was like, that's crazy. That's a great. Why not?
That's a great idea because you get to work with them again.
Imagine that. So I'm gonna try to catch up to the Henson people about that and see.
Yes. That'd be great.
That'd be great. That would be great.
That they have people, and who wouldn't want to come see Miss Piggy? Would she be Juliet?
Yeah.
Yes, she would.
Absolutely.
Kermit, would he be? I don't know.
That would be awesome.
It could be the Cookie Monster, the fiery Tybalt.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Imagine Shakespeare in dialogue would be great.
Yeah.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah.
No, they did something a couple years back. What was it? Muppets Meet the Classics. That's what it was called. And they did some book adaptations. One that we just found here was some fairy tales from the Brothers Grimm.
Oh wow! Okay, so they've done that. Okay,
they've done that in book form. It was, I don't know, almost 5 years ago now. I think it was.
Okay.
So
maybe,
but I kind of like the Muppets and Shakespeare better. I gotta be honest. It's a terrific idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. Yes.
You hear that? You got an idea? Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we got an idea here now.
An idea. Hear it now. So
there you go, Henson Company.
Henson, yes. Yep. So you were mentioning the gun plays and whatnot. And we've also talked about how your work in the past. Is there anything else you're currently working on?
Well, the Romeo and Juliet has worked, like I said, 5 months working on that. That's kind of up and running now. And now I'm going back to the gun violence stuff with the the kids' books. A lot of people have contacted me about that since my NBC Nightly News interview, and they were like, "Wow, we want to talk more about it. Can you help?" It's everywhere, so it's a big issue. So I want to kind of focus in on that there's a, like I said, I have these songs that I've been marrying from kids' rhymes. That's like one of the next books I want to get out and use that. So,
Nice.
I think, I'm going to wrap up in a minute. I'm in a room and they said, I think there's a class coming in.
Okay, so
we're about to wrap up soon anyway.
Yeah, so since I guess we'll just kind of go to the last questions. Are there any words you'd like to say to those watching or listening who have supported your work over the years?
Well, I want to thank everybody, my family, friends, high school buddies, college buddies. A lot of people have supported me and come to see my shows, see my projects, or they've seen my news interview. One of my students today at NYU were like, my parents saw you on the news. I was like, oh, she lives on the West Coast. I was like, okay, So it's just special. I love what I do. I love teaching, I love being around the artists and the community of artists. And, I'm kind of going to keep doing it till I drop. So, shout out to all the artists, all the people. Thank you guys for supporting me and having me.
Of course.
All the people that have, been around and seen Sesame Street and some of the other shows. And, I want everybody to stay positive, be good people, shine the light, save the world.
Yeah. Yes.
Put some hope out there. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So if people want to connect with you, where can people find you?
They can find me. I'm on my Instagram, Electric Black Experience. If anybody wants to check me out there, and
definitely will.
That's a great way to drop me a line or a note. Electric Black Experience, and I'll get back to you. So.
Nice, awesome.
Nice.
Yes, and your Instagram will be in the description down below, so people can.
And I'm at Theater for the New City. If you're in town, anybody sees us, you're near New York City. Theater for the New City at First Avenue, 155 First Avenue at 10th Street. Romeo and Juliet travel rock musical. I'm there and I'm in it. So, please come up and you say, hey, I saw you, and I was like, great, nice to meet you. Let's talk more.
Awesome. So the very last question, which Matt is about to ask, is a question that we ask all of our guests at the end.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You want to ask it, Julius? With pleasure. You haven't asked it in a while. Okay, so of course this podcast is called Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show. Hey, perfect timing. Thank you. What do you think of the word nostalgia? What do you think of, or how would you define the word nostalgia?
Nostalgia. Oh, well, it's a great name. Like, hey, nostalgia.
Yes. Yeah, there's lots of great.
I just love how it
sounds.
And so the sound of it just is like kind of memory recall. It's like, what do you recall? And nostalgia is that character that recalls things and brings it back. So that's when I think of nostalgia. I think this great character that recalls and brings back sort of beautiful memories and things that people can hold on to and embrace forever.
Yes.
So.
Yeah. Nice, great words.
Well, Yawn, thank you so much for doing this. Glad we were able to make it happen.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You guys are awesome, man. You guys are awesome.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And keep in touch, my friend. I will let you know when this goes
And
up.
when will this air? Are you guys airing it now, or when is it on?
Sometime in April-ish, maybe May or early May.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah, thank you for being the show, and thank you so much for what you've done, be a part of our lives. Keep up the great work, and see what's next for you.
And enjoy the rest of your day, and I hope all goes well with the Romeo and Juliet.
Yes, likewise.
Yes.
Take care, guys.
Take care, Yawn. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes. Take care.
Bye, Yawn. Oh wow, that was a fun chat, wasn't it, guys?
Yes, it was. Yes,
oh, he's wonderful.
He's
Very
wonderful,
cool.
And his work's wonderful too. The Patti LaBelle thing, which you mentioned a few times, wonderful tune.
Classic.
Yes.
But yeah, it's goodbye from us as well.
Yes.
Goodbye.
Yep. Same. Keep nostalgia alive. See you next.
Nostalgia alive. Yes.
Yes. Got some fun episodes coming. So
yes.
Yes.
Yep. For now. See you next time.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you for tuning in to another wonderful Jake's Happy Nostalgia Show interview. Be sure to follow Jake and the crew on social media and stream the show wherever you find your favorite podcasts. And as always, remember to keep nostalgia alive. Bye-bye.